She didn't know his name when he pressed the gun to her temple. Didn't know he was Korea's most feared crime lord when his hands, surprisingly gentle, steadied her trembling body against the warehouse wall. Didn't know that in exactly 7 seconds, when their eyes locked in the dim light and something ancient and irrevocable shifted in his chest, she would become the only thing in his blood-soaked empire he couldn't afford to lose. All Zuri knew was that she'd witnessed something she shouldn't have, and the beautiful monster holding her life in his hands looked at her like she'd just broken something fundamental inside him. Welcome to Afrokorea TV. Please like, share, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. The rain hammered against the corrugated metal roof of the abandoned warehouse in Seoul's industrial district, where Zuri had taken a wrong turn trying to find her photography studio. She'd moved to South Korea 3 months ago on a work visa, chasing a dream of cultural documentation, of capturing the collision between tradition and modernity in her lens. She hadn't planned on capturing a murder. Through her camera's viewfinder, she'd watched it unfold. 3 men in expensive suits. One kneeling. The sharp crack that echoed despite the rain. And him. The man who gave the order with nothing but a slight nod of his head, as if signing a death warrant required no more effort than approving lunch. Kang Min-ho. She wouldn't learn his name for another hour, but she'd remember his face forever. Sharp jaw, eyes like polished obsidian, black hair swept back to reveal features that belonged in museum paintings, not crime scenes. He wore violence the way other men wore cologne. Inherent, intoxicating, impossible to ignore. When his security spotted her crouched behind the shipping containers, camera still raised stupidly to her face, time fractured. Shouts in Korean she didn't understand. Running footsteps. Her own gasping breaths as she ran. Heels skidding on wet concrete. Camera bag slamming against her hip. She made it 14 feet before strong hands caught her. Spun her. Slammed her against the wall hard enough to knock the air from her lungs. Then he was there. Min-ho. Walking toward her with the unhurried confidence of a man who'd never had to chase anything because everything eventually came to him. His men parted like water, giving him space, and Zuri felt the weight of his attention like physical pressure against her skin. He stopped close enough that she could smell rain and gunpowder and something expensive. Sandalwood, maybe cedar. His hand came up, and she flinched, but he only took her camera, examining it with careful fingers before tucking it inside his jacket. You saw, he said in English, his accent thick but his vocabulary perfect. Not a question. Zuri's mouth was too dry to answer. She managed a jerky nod. Something flickered across his face. Not anger. Something worse, interest. He studied her with the focus people usually reserved for problems needing solutions. His gaze traveling from her terrified eyes to her trembling lips to the rapid pulse visible in her throat. Most people, he said slowly, who see what you saw tonight don't leave this warehouse alive. The words should have broken her. Instead they sparked something defensive. Then do it, Zuri heard herself say, her voice steadier than it had any right to be. But I'm not most people. And I sure as hell won't beg. The warehouse went silent. Even the rain seemed to pause. Min-ho's men exchanged looks that clearly said this woman was insane. That no one spoke to their boss like this. That she'd just signed her own death certificate. But Min-ho smiled. Slowly. Dangerously. Like he'd just discovered something rare. No, he agreed, leaning closer until his lips nearly brushed her ear. You're definitely not most people. His breath was warm against her skin, raising goosebumps that had nothing to do with fear, and everything to do with something she absolutely should not be feeling for a man who'd just killed someone. Which makes you either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. I haven't decided which yet. Can I vote? The words slipped out before Zuri could stop them. Min-ho pulled back enough to meet her eyes, and something in his expression shifted. Not softer, exactly, but more complex. Like he was solving an equation he hadn't expected to find interesting. You're African, he observed. Nigerian, judging by the accent. What's a Nigerian photographer doing in Seoul's industrial district at 11 p.m.? Getting lost, Zuri said honestly. And photographing architecture. Or trying to before she stopped, because before I watched you kill a man seemed undiplomatic. Before you witnessed something that makes you a liability, Min-ho finished. His hand came up again, this time to cup her face. thumb tracing her cheekbone with shocking gentleness. Tell me why I shouldn't eliminate that liability right now. Zuri's brain screamed at her to stay quiet, to not antagonize the crime lord literally holding her life in his hands. But her mouth as always had other plans. Because I'm a foreign national on a legal work visa. Because my disappearance would trigger international investigations you don't need. Because killing me is loud when you clearly prefer quiet. She paused. And because some part of you is curious why I'm not crying. The last part was instinct, a gamble based on the way he kept looking at her like she was a puzzle he wanted to solve. And it worked. Minho's smile widened, showing teeth that were perfect and predatory. Smart, he murmured. Beautiful. And completely unafraid of me even though you should be. His thumb moved to her bottom lip, pressing gently. You're right. I am curious. He stepped back abruptly, and Zuri nearly collapsed without his body to hold her up. He spoke rapid Korean to his men, who looked surprised but nodded. Then he turned back to her, and his expression was pure business. You have two choices, he said. I kill you now quick and clean. Or you work for me until I decide you're not a threat. Work for you how? Zuri's voice came out breathier than she intended. But Minho was always there. Not obviously. Not crowding her. But she'd look up from her camera and find him across the room watching. She'd finish a shoot and find a coffee waiting, exactly how she liked it, though she'd never told anyone her preferences. She'd mention wanting to try a specific Korean dish, and it would appear at her apartment that evening with a note in Minho's precise handwriting. Thought you should taste this properly made. He was courting her. Stalking her. The line between the two was impossibly thin. You need to stop, Zuri told him one evening after a restaurant shoot. They were alone in the closed establishment, Minho having dismissed his staff. The gifts, the coffee, the showing up everywhere I am. It's what? Minho leaned against the bar, whiskey glass in hand, looking unfairly good in his rolled-up shirt sleeves. Inappropriate? Unwanted? It's confusing, Zuri admitted. You threaten my life and then buy me dinner. You're a criminal, and you're also the most considerate man I've ever met. You watch me like you want to consume me, and then you keep 10 feet of distance like I'll shatter if you get closer. I don't know what you want from me, Minho. It was the first time she'd used his first name. The effect was immediate. His grip tightened on his glass, his eyes darkening with something that made Zuri's breath catch. What I want, he said slowly, setting down the glass and moving toward her with deliberate steps, is complicated. What I want terrifies me because I've never wanted anything I couldn't control. He stopped close enough that Zuri could feel his body heat. What I want is to touch you the way I've been imagining since I first saw you. To hear you say my name like you just did, but breathless. To know what you taste like, what you sound like when you... He stopped himself, jaw clenching. But what I want doesn't matter because you're not mine to take. You're here because I forced you to be. And anything that happens between us would be coercion, and I won't. His voice cracked slightly. I won't do that to you. Zuri's heart pounded. What if I wanted it too? Minho's eyes snapped to hers. Don't. Don't what? Don't admit that I think about you constantly? That I wait for you to show up at my shoots because the day feels empty when you don't? That when you stand close like this, I forget every reason I should be afraid of you? Zuri. His voice was strained. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. She stepped closer, closing the distance between them. I'm saying you're not the only one who's confused. I'm saying that somewhere between threatening my life and buying me coffee, you became something other than terrifying. I'm saying. Minho kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate and claiming, and 3 weeks of restraint finally breaking. His hands framed her face like she was precious, his mouth moving against hers with a hunger that made Zuri's knees weak. She gripped his shirt, pulling him closer, and he groaned against her lips, a raw, vulnerable sound that made something inside her chest crack open. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Minho rested his forehead against hers. This is a mistake, he whispered. Probably, Zuri agreed. Are you going to stop? No. His hand slid into her curls, tilting her head back so he could look at her properly. God help me, no. I'm going to be selfish and keep you even though I shouldn't. I'm going to want you even though it puts you in danger. I'm going to fall for you even though. He stopped, seeming to realize what he'd almost said. Even though what? Zuri prompted. Even though people I care about tend to get hurt, Minho finished quietly. My world isn't kind, Zuri. And now that everyone knows you matter to me, you're a target. Then I guess you'll have to protect me, Zuri said, trying for brave and landing somewhere closer to terrified. Minho's smile was sharp and possessive. With my life. The following morning, Zuri woke to find Minho's driver waiting outside her building. Not Junwoo this time, but a woman, Kim Soo-jin, who introduced herself as Minho's head of security and personal guard. Boss wants you moved, Soo-jin said without preamble. Her English clipped but clear. Your apartment isn't secure. Too many access points, no cameras, ground floor windows anyone could break. Zuri's coffee cup paused halfway to her lips. Moved where? Building he owns in Gangnam. Penthouse level, 24th-hour security, bulletproof windows. Soo-jin's expression suggested this wasn't a request. You can pack yourself or I'll have people do it. Either way, you're relocating by tonight. Does Minho always make decisions about people's lives without asking them? Soo-jin's lips twitched into something almost like a smile. Only when he's scared for them. And boss doesn't scare easy, which means the threat against you is real. That got Zuri's attention. What threat? Park Ji-hun. Rival organization controls the southern territories. He found out about you, about boss kissing you at the restaurant last night. Soo-jin's expression hardened. Security cameras we missed. Ji-hun has footage, which means he knows you matter. And anything that matters to Kang Minho becomes a weapon. Fear, cold and sharp, sliced through Zuri's chest. So what? I'm just supposed to uproot my entire life because some criminal I've never met might use me against Minho? Yes, Soo-jin said simply. Or you die. Those are your options. Boss is trying to give you the first one. 2 hours later, Zuri stood in a penthouse apartment that looked like something from a luxury magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's skyline, modern furniture in blacks and whites and grays. A kitchen she'd be afraid to cook in because everything looked too expensive to touch. You hate it. Minho's voice came from behind her. Zurspoon. He stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, looking exhausted. Still beautiful. He couldn't help that, but there were shadows under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept. I don't hate it, Zuri said carefully. I hate that I didn't get a choice. That you made decisions about my life without even calling me first. If I'd called, you would have argued. Would have said you were fine, that you could handle yourself, that moving was extreme. Minho moved closer, and Zuri saw genuine worry in his expression. And while you were arguing, Ji-hun's men would have been breaking into your apartment. They would have taken you, hurt you, used you to destroy me. Is that the choice you wanted? Zuri's anger deflated. You could have at least asked. You're right. Minho stopped close enough to touch but didn't. I should have asked. Should have given you agency even in this mess. I'm sorry. The apology sounded unpracticed, like he wasn't used to giving them. But I'm not sorry for keeping you safe. I'll never apologize for that. Even if keeping me safe means controlling my life? Especially then. His jaw tightened. You don't understand what Ji-hun is capable of. What he's done to people connected to me. I won't let that happen to you. The break in his sentence hung between them. People I cared about, he'd almost said. People I loved. Tell me, Zuri said quietly. Tell me what happened that makes you this afraid. Minho was silent for so long Zuri thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I had a brother. Younger, kinder, nothing like me. He wanted out of the organization, wanted to be normal. Teacher, maybe, or social worker. Something that helped people instead of hurting them. His voice went flat, emotionless in the way of people protecting themselves from pain. Ji-hun found out. Used him to get to me. By the time I found where they were keeping him. He stopped. Didn't need to finish. Zuri understood from the devastation in his eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered, reaching for his hand. Minho, I'm so sorry. He looked at their joined hands like he didn't know what to do with tenderness. I killed them all. Every person who touched him. It started a war that lasted 2 years and cost hundreds of lives. And I'd do it again. His eyes met hers. Just like I'll kill anyone who tries to hurt you. So yes, I'm controlling. Yes, I'm overbearing. But I will not lose someone else again that break. Someone else who matters to me. Zuri pulled him closer, wrapping her arms around him even though he stood rigid, uncertain. You won't lose me, she said against his chest. But you have to let me help. Let me be part of the decisions about my own life, even the scary ones. We're in this together, Minho. Stop trying to protect me by shutting me out. Slowly, incrementally, Minho's arms came around her. When he finally held her properly, it was with an intensity that bordered on desperation. I don't know how to do this, he admitted quietly. How to care about someone without suffocating them. How to keep you safe without treating you like property. How to love. He stopped himself again, but Zuri heard it. Love. He'd almost said love. We'll figure it out, she whispered. Together. The next 3 days passed in strange domesticity. Zuri worked from the penthouse, editing photos while Minho conducted business from the home office he maintained there. They ate meals together, mostly takeout because neither was much of a cook. They talked late into the night about everything and nothing. Her childhood in Lagos, his complicated relationship with his father's legacy, their fears and hopes and the impossibility of what was growing between them. And they touched. Constantly. Minho's hand on her back when he passed her. Zuri's fingers in his hair when they watched movies. Kisses that started soft and turned desperate before Minho pulled away, breathing hard, saying, "Not yet, not like this," in a voice that suggested it cost him everything to stop. Why not? Zuri asked the third night, frustrated and wanting and tired of the restraint. We both want this. We both know where this is going. Why do you keep pulling away? Minho's eyes were dark, haunted. Because once I have you completely, once I know what you feel like, what you sound like, how you taste everywhere, I'll never let you go. You'll be mine in every way, and there's no coming back from that. He cupped her face. I'm trying to give you a chance to run before it's too late. Before I become so obsessed with you that I stop caring whether you chose this or not. Minho. Zuri turned her head to kiss his palm. I already chose. The moment I kissed you back in that restaurant. The moment I agreed to move here. I chose you, and I'm still choosing you. Stop trying to protect me from yourself. You don't know what you're asking for. Then show me. Something in Minho broke. He kissed her like he was drowning and she was air, lifting her against him and carrying her to the bedroom with a grace that suggested he'd imagined this 1,000 times. When he laid her on his bed, their bed now, his hands trembled. Last chance, he whispered against her lips. Last chance to change your mind, to tell me to stop, to save yourself from me. Zuri pulled him down to her. I don't want to be saved from you. I want you. All of you. What happened next was heat and tenderness wrapped together. Minho worshipping every inch of her like she was sacred, murmuring Korean endearments against her skin that she didn't understand but felt in her soul. He was gentle and intense and completely overwhelming. And when they finally came together, Zuri understood why he'd been afraid. This wasn't just physical. This was spiritual, irrevocable, the kind of connection that changed everything. Afterward, Minho held her like she might disappear, his face buried in her hair. Mine, he whispered. Forever mine. I'll never let you go, Zuri. Never. She should have been frightened by the possession in his voice. Instead, she felt safe. Promise. With my life. Zuri woke alone. The bed beside her was cold, suggesting Minho had been gone for hours. Panic fluttered in her chest. That old fear that men lost interest after intimacy, that she'd been used, that last night had meant everything to her and nothing to him. She found a note on the nightstand. Business emergency. Didn't want to wake you. Be back soon. Don't leave the apartment. The command in that last sentence should have irritated her. Instead, it felt like care. She showered, made coffee, tried to work. But her mind kept replaying last night. The way Minho had touched her. The things he'd said in Korean that had sounded like prayers. Around noon, Soo-jin appeared. Boss wants you at the Myeongdong office. Now. Something in Soo-jin's expression made Zuri's stomach clench. What happened? Ji-hun made a move. Hit one of boss's shipments, killed 3 of our men, Left a message. Suinesko Taitand. Message was about you. The drive to Myeongdong Holdings was tense and silent. When Zuri arrived, she found Minho in his office with 5 other men, all looking grim. Minho's expression when he saw her was relief and fury wrapped together. You shouldn't be here, he said, moving toward her. I told Sujin to keep you at the apartment. She said you wanted to see me. Minho's eyes cut to Sujin, who shrugged. She needed to know. Keeping her ignorant doesn't keep her safe. What's going on? Zuri demanded. What message? Minho pulled out his phone, showing her a photo that made her blood run cold. It was her, a photo of her leaving her old apartment 3 weeks ago, before the move. Written across it in red, pretty bird. Shame if something happened to her. Jihan is escalating, Minho said, his voice deadly calm in the way of people barely controlling rage. He's not just threatening you anymore. He's actively hunting you. Which means you don't leave my sight until he's handled. Handled how? However I need to handle him. Minho's expression was stone. Even if that means war. One of the other men, older, gray-haired, spoke in rapid Korean. Minho responded, his tone sharp, and suddenly everyone was arguing. Zuri caught words she recognized. Dangerous, revenge, innocent. Enough, Minho finally said in English. My decision is made. We move against Jihan tonight. Surgical strike, eliminate his command structure, end this before it escalates further. You'll start a war that will cost dozens of lives, the older man said in accented English, looking at Zuri. All for one woman. Yes, Minho said simply. All for her. And if you have a problem with that, there's the door. No one moved. That evening Minho sat with Zuri on the penthouse balcony, both silent, watching Seoul's lights flicker to life. He held her hand like she might evaporate. I should tell you to stay here, he finally said. To wait safely while I go do terrible things to terrible people. But I know you'll just worry, imagine the worst, drive yourself insane. He looked at her. So I'm asking. Do you want to come? Come where? To the warehouse where we're meeting Jihan. To watch me negotiate or fight or whatever it takes to end this threat against you. His grip tightened. I'm not asking you to participate. Just to see who I really am when the mask comes off. And then decide if you can still love me anyway. Love. He said it so casually, like it was already established fact. I'll come, Zuri said. And Minho? I already know who you are. Last night proved that. You're not just the violence. You're also the man who holds me like I'm precious. Both can be true. His kiss was grateful and desperate. I don't deserve you. Probably not. But you have me anyway. The warehouse was different from the one where they'd first met, but the atmosphere was the same. Tension, danger, the feeling of violence waiting to happen. Minho's men lined the walls, armed and alert. In the center stood Park Jihan, flanked by his own security. Jihan was older than Minho, maybe mid-40s, with a cruel face and eyes that lingered on Zuri in a way that made her skin crawl. Kong Minho. Jihan said in English, clearly for Zuri's benefit. You brought your pretty bird. How sweet. This ends tonight, Minho said, positioning himself between Jihan and Zuri. You stop targeting her, stop interfering with my operations, or I end you. Those are your options. Or, Jihan countered. I kill her right now, break you completely, and take over your entire territory while you're too devastated to fight back. He moved fast, faster than Zuri expected. One moment he was 10 feet away, the next he had a gun aimed at her chest. Minho moved faster. The gunshot was deafening. Zuri screamed. But the blood wasn't hers, it was Jihan's, spreading across his shoulder where Minho had shot him with inhuman precision and speed. You don't touch her, Minho said quietly, his own gun now trained on Jihan's head. You don't look at her. You don't think about her. She's off limits permanently, and anyone who forgets that ends up dead. Jihan clutched his shoulder, face twisted with rage and pain. You'll start a war over a woman. I'll burn this entire city down for her, Minho corrected. So yes, war it is. What happened next was chaos. Jihan's men moved, Minho's men responded, and suddenly the warehouse erupted into gunfire. Minho grabbed Zuri. shielding her with his body while returning fire with deadly accuracy. She felt him flinch once, heard his sharp inhale, and realized with horror that he'd been hit. Minho. I'm fine, he gritted out, still firing, still protecting her. Stay down. The fight lasted maybe 90 seconds but felt eternal. When it ended, Jihan's men were dead or fleeing, and Jihan himself was on his knees, Minho's gun pressed to his head. Please, Jihan begged. Please, I'll leave the city, leave the country, you'll never see me again. You threatened her, Minho said flatly. That's unforgivable. He pulled the trigger. In the aftermath, while Minho's men cleaned up and Sujin handled the complicated business of making bodies disappear, Zuri forced Minho to let her examine his wound. The bullet had grazed his side. Painful but not life-threatening. You were shot protecting me, Zuri said, hands shaking as she pressed gauze to the wound. And I'd take 100 more bullets if it meant keeping you safe. Minho caught her hands, stilling them. Are you afraid of me now? Now that you've seen what I'm capable of? Zuri looked at this man who'd killed for her, who'd started a war for her, who'd literally taken a bullet for her. I'm terrified, she admitted. But not of you. Of losing you. Of what your world costs. Of how much I love you even though I shouldn't. Minho's expression cracked. Say that again. I love you. Tears spilled down Zuri's cheeks. I love you even though you're dangerous and controlling and you make decisions without asking me. I love you because you're also gentle and protective and you look at me like I'm the most important thing in your world. I love you, Minho, and it terrifies me. He kissed her like she was oxygen, careful of his injury but desperate nonetheless. I love you, he murmured against her lips. I've loved you since you refused to beg for your life in that first warehouse. Since you looked at me like I was human instead of monster. Since you chose to stay even when I gave you reasons to run. He pulled back to look at her properly. Marry me. Zuri's breath caught. What? Marry me. Tonight, tomorrow, next week, I don't care when. Just marry me, let me make you mine legally, let everyone in this city know that you're under my protection permanently. His hands framed her face. I know it's fast. I know it's insane. But I also know I want you beside me for every day I have left, and in my world, tomorrow isn't guaranteed. So marry me, Zuri. Please. She should have said no. Should have asked for time, for normalcy, for a relationship that didn't involve gunfights and territorial wars. Instead, she heard herself say, yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Minho's smile was pure joy and relief. Really? Really? But Minho, I have conditions. Anything. You teach me Korean properly. You introduce me to your whole organization as your equal, not your property. You let me keep working, keep my independence, keep being me even while I'm yours. She paused. And you get therapy. For the trauma, the violence, all of it. Because I love you, but I won't watch you destroy yourself. For a moment, Zuri thought she'd pushed too far. Then Minho laughed, a real, genuine laugh she'd never heard from him. Therapy. You want Korea's most feared crime lord to get therapy? Yes. You're insane. But he was smiling. And I love you for it. Fine. Therapy. Equal partnership. Korean lessons. All of it. He kissed her again. But the wedding happens fast. I'm not risking someone else trying to take you before you're legally mine. They were married a week later in a private ceremony at one of Minho's hotels. His entire organization attended, men in expensive suits who bowed to Zuri with genuine respect, calling her Samonim, which Minho translated as boss's wife, but with deeper connotations of respect and protection. Zuri wore traditional Korean hanbok in deep crimson, a compromise between cultures that felt right. When Minho lifted her veil, his eyes were wet. My wife, he murmured in Korean then English. Finally mine. Finally yours, Zuri agreed. And you're finally mine too. Don't forget that part. The reception was lavish and slightly surreal. Crime lords toasting to love, discussing territory agreements between courses, treating Zuri like royalty because she'd captured their untouchable boss's heart. By the end of the night, Zuri understood. Marrying Minho meant becoming part of something larger. A family bound by loyalty and fear and a twisted kind of honor. 6 months later, Zuri stood in the bathroom of their penthouse, staring at the positive pregnancy test in her trembling hands. Fear and joy warred in her chest. A baby. Their baby. Growing inside her in a world of danger and violence and impossible love. Zuri. Minho's voice came from the bedroom. You okay? She emerged, test in hand. Minho, He saw what she was holding and went absolutely still. Then slowly, carefully, he crossed to her and took the test, studying it like it might be a trick. You're pregnant. Yes. Zuri searched his face for the reaction she feared. Regret, fear, resentment. Instead, she found awe. We're having a baby. Minho said it like a prayer. He dropped to his knees, pressing his face to her still flat stomach. A baby. Our baby. Someone who's half you and half me. Who's going to have your strength and your beauty and your... His voice cracked. I'm going to be a father. Are you happy? Zuri asked, fingers threading through his hair. Minho looked up at her, and his expression was everything she needed. Happy doesn't begin to cover it. Terrified, yes. Overwhelmed, absolutely. But happy. He stood, pulling her close. I'm so happy I could burn the whole world down just to celebrate. Please don't, Zuri said, laughing through tears. Our baby needs a world to grow up in. Then I'll make it safe. Minho's hands were possessive on her waist. I'll make this entire city safe for our child. I'll end the wars, broker permanent peace. Do whatever it takes so our baby grows up never knowing the darkness I've lived in. Just love us, Zuri said simply. Love us, and that's enough. Minho kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. I'll love you both forever. You gave me everything, Zuri. Life when I'd accepted death. Hope when I'd given up on it. A future when I thought I only had a violent present. You saved me. We saved each other, Zuri corrected. And looking at this man who'd threatened her life and then gave her his entire world, who'd killed for her and would die for her and now would raise a child with her, Zuri knew it was true. They'd saved each other. The crime lord and the photographer, the monster and the woman who saw past the blood to the man beneath. Their love was dangerous and complicated and completely impossible. It was also real. And that made all the difference. 9 months later, Minho held his daughter for the first time, tears streaming down his face while Zuri watched from the hospital bed, exhausted and deliriously happy. She's perfect, he whispered in Korean. Perfect like her mother. What should we name her? Zuri asked. Minho looked at his wife and his daughter, his family, his entire world, and smiled. Hope. In English and in Korean. Because that's what you both are. My hope. My everything. And in that moment, surrounded by guards outside the door and danger still lurking in shadows and a future that would never be completely safe, they were happy. They were whole. They were home. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button. Share it with someone who believes in dangerous love and impossible happy endings. Comment below. Would you choose the crime lord or run? Would you stay for love even when it's complicated? Your thoughts mean everything. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most dangerous choice is also the right one. Stay blessed, stay bold, and I'll see you in the next story.